Spheres.
So this is Jessica speaking. Casey is someone I trust to be the executor of a part of my vision, and I also trust him to be the executor of his own vision. Every one of the demands on him that I place come with the qualification that his health and well-being are taken care of first. I think he should know that. I know he feels like my requests must come at any price, but this is not how I feel. If he works himself to a breaking point, he will not be able to work with me at all, and that is the last thing I want.
Okay. We've taken the disturbance that has occurred in the third person, spent some time describing it, then we moved it into second person, we've had a conversation with the person about that, and now we've moved it into first person, where we are them and we're occupying their mind and whatever that disturbance is. So the interesting thing about it, as I said to you earlier, is that it's always easier to see the projection in others than it is in ourselves. Okay? So remember my pal Jane, right? The person that I have trouble with because we work well together, but when we socialize, I feel like she's emotionally needy and I need to take care of her. What is really happening there?
You don't like neediness. You have a problem with neediness in yourself.
Well, actually, who's emotionally needy?
You are.
Right.
You
see
to make
that?
her okay.
Precisely. I am emotionally needy. I need to take care of her emotionally. Turns out the need is coming from me, not her. Do you see that? Okay. So that's the insight. That's the main thing we're trying to get, is to see how that very thing that we see that's distasteful to us actually is a projection of our own mind onto someone else. And as we saw when I went through my dialogue with her, she had no interest in me taking care of her. That was coming from me entirely. Okay, so let's just look at how, those of you who were able to see it, how you saw the projection, what is it, and how you're taking it back. Because that's the question you have to ask at the end of the process, is what is it exactly that I've been putting on them that's really mine? Okay, go ahead.
I think it was pretty clear that my projection is that I have a lot of guilt around being relatively privileged and successful in ways. And I project that onto the jerk.
Nicely done. What do you think? Seem right?
But he's still a jerk.
Well, he may be.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the point that I was making earlier. It still may be that people have these traits, but you're not going to be taking up a lot of your energy describing those to yourself and objecting to those once you realize that that's actually something in you that you've got to work out. Then he's free to live his life. And he can be in whatever way he's going to be, and you're not going to have that same emotional charge.
Right.
You may still not respect him terribly,
Yeah.
but it's not going to be taking up your emotional currency or your energy. Does everybody see that? Okay, so who else?
I would
Anybody?
Say, yeah,
Go
I would
ahead,
say
Willie.
in my situation, and it's the words of a song came to mind, which is this: after so long, nobody's wrong. After so long, nobody's right. Mm-hmm. And so often it's important, you know, if there wasn't a rupture in a friendship, it's just that nobody called, one didn't call the other. And you can start to read a lot into why they're not calling you, and meanwhile you're not calling them.
Right.
And they might be perceiving exactly the same thing.
Right.
And so after that long period, I realized that I was certainly as much at fault or more as this other person. I was projecting that fault onto that person.
So very simply speaking, in Rolly's case, the friend abandoned him, right? But if you'll notice, what happened is Rolly in his own mind actually abandoned his friend because he stopped valuing the relationship. And what he's seeing is that actually he could continue valuing it even though they're not seeing each other. And he could continue valuing what they, you know, the history they had together. But he actually has pushed the friend away. You see that? Everybody? Okay, give us a couple more. A little more insight, since the entire exercise rests on you having this insight. The success of this DVD rests on you having this insight.
That's a projection.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
So my friend is always the type of person that brings the concern into every situation, like, oh, be careful, or don't do that, or maybe you want to think about that before you do that. And that is me, but I'm not as blatant about it. It's in my head and in my subconscious. Those things are going through my head, but I just don't verbalize them as much as she does. And when she verbalizes them, it really, really bothers me because I know that that's already what I'm thinking or feeling or maybe was trying to avoid.
And this is the point we have to pick up. She's already feeling this, and there's a part of her that doesn't want to be. Do you see that? She's not okay with the fact that she's having those kinds of thoughts. She actually doesn't feel like she should be having that experience, so she's not going to have it, and she's going to let it show up in her friend. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I think the concern people have a lot of times is that it just seems like it's too glib. You know, that everything in a certain way could be this simple. But when you start doing this practice over time, it's unbelievable how much it reaps in terms of these kinds of... I went through a process where I did it because one of my daughters has been going through a phase of lying to me or distorting the truth or whatever. And when I did this with her, not only did I have like amazing insight into her predicament in terms of how demanding I am and how much I ask her to disclose, but for 2 or 3 days after I did it, I started seeing all the ways in which I distort the truth. I mean, it was unbelievable. Now, I still have the issue with her. I still want to work on that with her, but my whole perspective on it's changed in that, like, some kind of moral outrage that I had and some demand that she be honest with me because I'm her parent, like, that part's gone. I'm joined with her in that we're both liars. She and I together. The two of us, you know. Liars and thieves, both. So, all right. So, Marco, what are your insights? And maybe you don't. Maybe the projection's not that clear. What comes up? Because I have one for you if you don't.
Good. I'll want to hear that.
Yeah. Okay.
What I'm thinking is that there's a quality of fierceness or ruthlessness or intensity or passion or immediacy that I project onto Nina or a potential relationship with her, which is kind of like the voice of the core of my being, you know, demanding me to be true, so to speak. And so I'm just seeing it out there, but I'm like not living it, or I don't recognize how I'm living it. And I need to claim that. Yeah, that's what I see. What do you see?
Well, what I see is that you're asking her to love you, right? You want her to love you and you want her to stop being so hateful, but I see that you hate her just as much as she hates you.
This is true.
I mean, at least from where I'm sitting, it looks like there's a parallel in terms of the intensity of feeling and the intensity of expressing both sides of the love equation, you know, that you actually have those strong feelings about her as well, as she has those about you. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, maybe there's some rule that other people shouldn't, you know, identify your projection. Maybe it really has to be your own insight. But I'm amazed at how other people see things in me I can't, you know.
I think that's probably correct.
I'd like to hear from you. What effect did doing the exercise have on you? Did you have any insights? Were you able to own the projection? Just whatever you want to offer would be great. Yeah.
I think for me, it was difficult doing that. It was really, really difficult just doing all 3 parts.
Right.
And because I felt like I was being really critical of another person.
Right.
And just as I'm listening to everybody else, for me, and I'm not even sure if I'd be able to actually articulate it quite well, because I see the neediness and clinginess that I hate in him so much. I see that clearly in myself, and for the last 6 months or a year or so, I've been hating myself for having done that to a man that I truly, really deeply fell in love with. And I became a burden. I think I became a burden to him because I became very clingy and needy. And that just simply just never worked out. Now, when John is doing the same thing to me, I'm resenting myself for having lost this other man. He just couldn't deal with that. And so, in some ways, I'm kind of feeling like this whole thing with John is all about me and how much I'm resenting myself for having lost that other guy.
Wow. Okay. All right.